The unbelievable confession from my husband's boss. A tale of infidelity. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe to keep up with our newest narratives. At 62, I never envisioned encountering a circumstance like this. Life, it seems, was meant to be a tapestry of predictability by this point. The dawn hours dedicated to nurturing my garden, the afternoons enveloped in the solace of a good book, and the evenings shared with my husband, Thomas, as we fondly recalled the tapestry of our past years. Yet, on one fateful evening, a clandestine dialogue transformed everything, casting doubt on my previously held beliefs. The tale began at a lavish corporate gala orchestrated by Thomas's company. For more than 30 years, he had toiled in that place, ascending the hierarchy with steadfast commitment. Charles Bennett, his boss, exuded a quiet authority, a figure with whom I had merely shared polite pleasantries at past gatherings. In his mid-60s, he stood tall and distinguished, exuding a quiet confidence that appeared entirely effortless. The gala unfolded within the opulent confines of a prestigious hotel in downtown Chicago, where grand chandeliers illuminated the scene, casting a warm glow over the elegantly attired guests. The atmosphere buzzed with lively chatter, the gentle clinking of glasses, and the soothing strains of a jazz ensemble playing softly in the corner. These events did not capture my interest. The solace of home was my preference. Yet, Thomas had been adamant, prompting me to don a simple navy blue dress and consent to join him. At first glance, everything appeared to be perfectly ordinary. Thomas found himself engrossed in conversations with his colleagues, while I busied myself engaging in lighthearted exchanges with the other spouses. Everything changed when Richard came into my view. "Ruth, could I steal a moment of your time?" he inquired, his resonant voice cutting through the clamor of the room. There was a moment of uncertainty. One fleeting moment? What could Thomas's superior possibly desire from me? With a polite smile and a nod, I followed him as he guided me through a side corridor, distancing ourselves from the bustling main ballroom. The atmosphere grew still, the echoes of the gala receding into the distance. He led me into an intimate lounge, a snug space adorned with soft lighting, a crackling fireplace, and inviting leather armchairs. A delicate tension hung in the air, both subtle and unmistakable. My heart raced slightly as I settled into the seat opposite him. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything significant," he said, a small, almost anxious smile gracing his lips. "Not in the slightest," I reassured him, yet the curiosity simmering within me was impossible to ignore. "What thoughts occupy your mind?" He exhaled softly, his hands moving together in a gesture that suggested he was in pursuit of the perfect expression. At last, he found his voice. "The subject at hand is Thomas." At that moment, I sat up straighter in my chair, a knot forming in my stomach. "Is there an issue at hand?" He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Not quite. However, there is a matter I believe you ought to be aware of." The gravity of his words hung in the air, palpable even before they escaped his lips. His expression bore a weighty seriousness that stirred something within me, a subtle intensity that quickened my heartbeat. "Ruth," he pressed on, his tone soft yet resolute. "My acquaintance with Thomas stretches back many years. I have observed him as he meticulously constructs his career, uplifts his colleagues, and nurtures his family. Amidst the chaos, a realization has dawned upon me." I took a deep breath. What could it be? He inclined his body just a fraction, his eyes firmly fixed on mine. "He fails to value you as he ought to." The words settled in my chest, weighty as a stone. My breath hitched, and a sudden surge of defensiveness washed over me. Confusion washed over me as I stammered, struggling to grasp the situation. "Thomas exemplifies the qualities of a devoted husband. He has always been." Richard inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I am aware of his existence. But pray tell, Ruth, when was the last occasion he genuinely beheld you? Not merely in the role of his wife, but as the extraordinary woman you truly are." I parted my lips to speak, yet silence enveloped me. He pressed on, his voice now a gentle murmur. "Your gaze lingers on him, even when he is oblivious to your presence." I have observed you lingering in the shadows at gatherings such as these, as he immerses himself in his tasks. You offer so much, yet does he reciprocate? A lump coalesced in my throat. I felt the urge to protest, to assert that he was mistaken, yet a profound uncertainty stirred within me. I don't mean to overstep, Richard said, leaning back slightly. Yet, there are moments when an outsider perceives what those within fail to recognize. I released a slow breath, thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. Richard examined my features intently before bestowing upon me a subtle, understanding smile. Ruth, you are worthy of recognition. The words resonated with the part of me I had yet to discover. For the first time in ages, uncertainty clouded my emotions. I remained motionless, caught in a moment of stillness. Richard's words reverberated in my thoughts, awakening a feeling I was unprepared to face. You are worthy of recognition. Had I truly remained in the shadows for such an extended period? I sought to dismiss his Thomas as nothing more than a casual observation, a gesture of goodwill that, while well-meaning, missed the Thomas entirely. Yet, beneath the surface, a part of me recognized the truth in his words. Thomas was a decent man, a diligent provider. He had consistently embodied steadiness and reliability. Yet in those hushed instances, the ones that held significance, when had he last genuinely gazed upon me? When had he last observed the subtle efforts I made to nurture our life, to keep it vibrant and rich? How I meticulously folded his shirts to match his preferences. How I ensured our home was adorned with his beloved treasures. How I had remained by his side through each career triumph and now sit back. I cleared my throat, suppressing the lump that had taken residence within. Richard, He raised a hand, halting my words. I hope this doesn't put you in an awkward position, Ruth, but I felt compelled to speak up. I exhaled gently, releasing the tension within me. I express my gratitude for your honesty, I said at last, though my tone was gentler than I had meant it to be. Thomas and I have shared our lives for decades. Marriage transcends mere visibility. It revolves around dedication and steadfastness. Richard inclined his head in acknowledgement. I understand, and I hold that in high regard. He inclined his body just a touch, his eyes fixed with unyielding intensity. Have you ever paused to ponder what it is that you genuinely desire? The inquiry hung in the air, suspended in the silence that enveloped us. What I desired? For countless years, I devoted myself to understanding Thomas's needs, fulfilling the demands of our marriage, and meeting the expectations placed upon me. I had never genuinely paused to reflect on my desires. A soft, anxious chuckle escaped my lips. Richard, this is certainly an intriguing discussion to engage in at a corporate gala. It brought a smile to his face. Perhaps it is, yet an inner voice urged me to express it. A pause lingered in the air, punctuated solely by the gentle crackle of the flames in the fireplace. With a deep sigh, he rose to his feet. I suppose it's time for you to return to your tasks. I stood there, my hands trembling slightly as I smoothed the fabric of my dress. Indeed, Thomas will ponder my whereabouts. Richard nodded, yet his expression held an enigmatic quality that defied interpretation. Ruth has just made me a promise. I inclined my head. What is that? Please don't overlook my words. Consider it carefully. After a moment of uncertainty, I finally nodded, albeit slowly. Very well. He offered a faint smile before moving aside, indicating the door with a subtle gesture. As I strolled by him, I sensed the warmth of his presence alongside me, the heaviness of our conversation lingering on my chest. Upon my return, the gala continued to revel in its vibrant splendor. Thomas remained precisely in the spot I had last seen him, engrossed in a lively discussion with his colleagues. Initially, he failed to see me. I lingered at a distance, observing him intently. His face came alive, hands gesturing expressively as he spoke. It was an aspect of him that had always captivated me, his fervor, his determination. Yet, I found myself reflecting on Richard's words. Had Thomas ever gazed at me with such intensity? As he finally cast his gaze in my direction, a subtle nod acknowledged my presence before he returned to his discussion. A transformation stirred within me. Richard had sown a seed, and despite my efforts to dismiss it, I was acutely aware that it was already starting to take root. The journey back was enveloped in silence. Thomas sat beside me, his hands tightly clasping the wheel, his eyes locked on the shadowy path that lay before us. The city lights danced in a fleeting haze, yet my thoughts wandered far beyond their glow. Richard's words lingered in my mind, reverberating like a haunting melody. His voice hung in the air, an echo I couldn't dispel. "It is your right to be acknowledged." I cast a fleeting look at Thomas. He appeared weary, a subtle line of tension etched between his brows. After nearly 4 decades of marriage, I had committed to memory every nuance of his features. The defined contours of his jaw, the delightful crinkle of his eyes when laughter erupted, the firm press of his lips as he focused intently. Yet, when was the last moment he had truly gazed upon me? He cleared his throat, shattering the stillness that enveloped the room. "Did you enjoy yourself this evening?" The inquiry took me by surprise. He posed the question after each event, each gathering, each dinner party, as if compelled by duty rather than true interest. For a moment, I paused, weighing my response carefully. It was quite intriguing. He nodded, lost in thought. "Excellent, excellent." And just as swiftly, the dialogue came to a close. I shifted my attention back to the window, observing the city fade into the distance as we journeyed toward the serene suburbs. Upon our return home, Thomas followed his familiar routine. He removed his jacket, placed his keys on the counter, and withdrew to his office for a final glance at his emails. I lingered in the kitchen, my gaze fixed on the vacant spot where he had recently occupied. I felt no anger towards him, not quite. Thomas had consistently embodied this nature, devoted to his craft, unwavering in his habits. He had bestowed upon me a life filled with comfort and certainty. Yet Richard's words had stirred something within me, a feeling I could no longer suppress. As I strolled into the bedroom, my gaze fell upon my reflection in the mirror. At the age of 62, my once ginger locks now bore strands of silver. Delicate lines etched upon my visage, whispers of the years I had traversed. Yet my eyes remained unchanged. In those moments, I perceived a detail that had long eluded my attention. Isolation. I had always believed this was merely an aspect of growing older. This subtle retreat into the shadows, this slow descent into the mundane. Yet, in this moment, I found myself pondering, was it truly so? The following morning, as Thomas departed for work, he pressed a kiss to my cheek and re-Thomased, "I'll be home late." A significant client meeting is on the horizon. I incline my head slightly, a faint smile gracing my lips. "Take care and stay safe." And then he vanished into thin air. I lingered in the doorway, caught in a moment of hesitation, before finally retreating back inside. Typically, my days would be occupied with a flurry of errands, the diligent upkeep of my home, or the nurturing of my garden. Yet today, an unsettling restlessness washed over me. Before I could reason my way out of it, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never imagined I would. Richard picked up on the second ring. "Ruth?" His voice held a subtle hint of astonishment. I inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. "Would you care to join me for a cup of coffee?" A moment of silence lingered in the air. And then, gently, naturally, an hour later, I found myself seated opposite him at a serene cafe by the lake. The aroma of roasted coffee beans mingled with the scent of fresh pastries, while outside, the autumn leaves twirled gracefully in the gentle breeze. Richard regarded me with a subtle, contemplative interest. "I found myself uncertain about whether I would receive any word from you." I swirled my coffee, observing the delicate dance of cream merging with the rich, dark liquid. I found myself uncertain about making the call. He inclined his head, biding his time. With a deliberate breath, I released the air slowly. "Your words have lingered in my mind," prompting reflection. His expression was a mask, impenetrable and enigmatic. After a moment of hesitation, I finally locked eyes with him. "You were indeed correct." A glimmer danced in his eyes, an elusive quality that defied my ability to define it. "Ruth, I wouldn't claim that I harbor regrets about my life." I interjected softly. "Thomas and I have forged a bond that is robust, a connection that is undeniably authentic." Yet, at some point in this journey, it seems I lost the ability to desire something for my own sake. Richard inclined his body ever so slightly, a subtle shift that hinted at his engagement in the moment. And now I took a deep breath. At this moment, uncertainty looms over me. A hush enveloped us, punctuated solely by the faint murmur of voices drifting in the background. At last, Richard uttered a few words, his tone soft and subdued. "My only desire is for your happiness." I gazed upon him, truly gazed upon him. A man entered my life without invitation, uttering words that held no obligation, yet he spoke as if he had glimpsed a part of me that remained hidden, even from my own eyes. In that moment, it dawned on me that a decision lay before me. I found myself seated, gazing at Richard from across the intimate confines of the cafe table, my fingers encircling the comforting warmth of my coffee cup. "My sole desire is for your happiness." His words lingered in the atmosphere, weighty yet tender, reminiscent of a truth I had evaded for far too long. For years, I convinced myself that contentment sufficed, that security, stability, and loyalty stood as the foundational pillars of a fulfilling life. Indeed, they were. Yet Richard had revealed a hidden facet within me, an element I had not realized was absent. A yearning to experience. I inhaled deeply, feeling the heavy burden of my thoughts bearing down upon me. "Richard, I find myself at a loss with all of this." His gaze became gentle. "There is no obligation for you to take any action, Ruth. Contemplate the elements that bring you joy. When was the last occasion you indulged in something solely for your own enjoyment?" I parted my lips to speak, yet hesitated. When did it last occur? For decades, I dedicated myself to ensuring that Thomas received unwavering support, that his career, his aspirations, and his entire world stayed whole. I had crafted a life steeped in order, a tapestry woven with the threads of routine. Yet, what of my own existence? As I savored a sip of my coffee, the deep, bitter warmth enveloped me, anchoring my thoughts for just a fleeting moment. I find myself questioning my identity beyond the confines of my marriage. I found myself admitting the words, surprising even to me. Richard offered me a subtle, knowing smile. "Perhaps the moment has come to discover the truth." A soft, anxious laugh escaped my lips. That evokes a sense of dread, perhaps. Yet it holds a certain thrill. Wouldn't you agree? I chose to remain silent. I was unable to do so, for beneath the surface, I understood he held the truth. We lingered in quietude for a time. The world beyond continued its relentless march, just as it always had. Vehicles gliding by. Joyful laughter fills the air. The breeze whispers through the shimmering golden leaves of autumn. Life moved forward, unyielding and relentless, leaving no room for contemplation. Yet, perhaps for the very first time, I found it necessary to do so. At last, I placed my cup on the table and locked eyes with him. "The future remains a mystery to me, Richard. Yet, I am acutely aware that it is time for me to embrace life once more." A smile danced at the edge of his lips. "That is all I wish for you to understand." As the night unfolded, Thomas returned home to find me already seated at the kitchen table, anticipation hanging in the air. He scarcely glanced in my direction as he placed his briefcase on the ground and eased his tie from around his neck. "It was a long day," he murmured. "Fatigue envelopes me." I observed him for a brief moment. This man with whom I had crafted a life. This man whom I had cherished for decades. And yet, as he traversed the rooms of the house, an invisible chasm lingered between us. A rift I had failed to perceive, widening silently through the passage of time. With a deep inhalation, I gathered my thoughts. "Thomas, may we have a conversation?" He hesitated, his gaze finally shifting toward me. "Concerning what matter?" I swallowed hard. "Who are we?" His brows knitted together in a subtle display of concern. "What is to become of us?" After a moment of uncertainty, I finally voiced the thoughts that had been simmering within me since the previous evening. "I feel unseen, Thomas." He blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "What is this?" "It seems as though I have devoted countless years to being the partner who stands by your side, who ensures that everything flows smoothly, who diligently maintains the stability of our life together. And I truly love you. Yet, at some point in this journey, I faded from view. His brow furrowed, unmistakably taken by surprise. Ruth, what is the source of this? I gently shook my head. It has lingered for an extended period. I simply never allowed myself to voice it aloud. He settled into the chair opposite me, his hand gliding over his face in a weary gesture. I was unaware that you held these feelings. I observed him with great attention. Have you ever pondered? He remained quiet. In that fleeting instant, a harsh truth dawned upon me. Thomas was not an unkind husband. His actions were not driven by malice or intentional disregard. He had merely taken for granted, as I had, that marriage signified a life of routine. That solace was sufficient. We no longer needed to reach out to one another as we used to. Yet that was not truly living. That was not love. Not any longer. What do you mean? At last, he inquired, his tone laced with hesitation. With a deep breath, I draw in the air. I must begin to embrace a life that is truly my own once more. His complexion dulled ever so slightly. Are you revealing my secrets? After a moment of doubt, I simply shook my head. The future remains a mystery, Thomas. Yet, I am acutely aware that I cannot continue to present myself in this manner. For this marriage to endure, a transformation is essential. He gazed at me intently, his eyes lingering for what felt like an eternity. For the first time in years, I caught a glimmer in his eyes. Awakening. Perhaps there was an opportunity for us to mend this situation. Perhaps we did not. Yet, after many years, I felt prepared to uncover the truth.